All right, so Blaine, we're going to be answering one of the common questions I think we get more and more often, and it's that is, should I be focusing on paid advertising, especially online? You might be watching this and maybe you see one of your competitors, an ad for one of your competitors.
Coming up on Google or Facebook.
Yeah, that can be the trigger point a lot of times. You feel this FOMO, like I'm missing out. Is this, this is obviously, it's got to be getting traction for them if they're doing it. So we're going to be answering that question today, just talking through our experience of paid advertising and our evolution through that, because just recently, Blaine, we've been doing some experiments over a several year period that have really started to gain traction and pay off. So today, if you're listening to this, we're getting hundreds, actually paying off in a big way. Hundreds of new customers a week is what we're talking about. So we'll share a little bit about that too. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to dive straight in to, firing up a Google campaign or an ad on Facebook or TikTok. There's so many places to do that these days.
The reality is we've had good and bad experiences.
Yes.
Recently, really exciting experiences. We've discovered that, yes, paid advertising can work, but as we look back at our good and bad experiences, there's a couple of, I guess, key components that we've had in place in our business that actually made it work versus when it didn't work.
Let's give the history tour and talk about maybe some of the battle scars that we've had over the years with paid advertising. But before we get to that, if you're new to the show and you're listening the first time, welcome to Food Chain Wars. My name is Brooks Hitzfield. This is my brother Blaine, co-host of the show alongside me here. We've got a lot of experience in the farm to fork world, selling direct to consumer. Seven Sons is a 8-figure e-commerce brand. We're selling grass-fed beef, pork, poultry across the nation at this point. We've had experience developing a software e-commerce platform called GrazeCart that's specifically for farmers who want to sell direct to consumer, butcher shops, even fishmongers. So we've been in this world for a long time, and on this show we just basically share our experience that we're learning, continuing to learn at Seven Sons, and talking to other folks in the industry as well, and just unpacking their journey into this whole world of farm to fork. Food chain wars, we call it food chain wars because it's a competitive industry and it's tough, especially if you're a farm who's trying to vertically integrate and climb the value chain. There's a lot of things you need to do. You need to grow the animal, get it processed, fulfill it, get the item shipped to the door, do the customer service. So we feel like there just needs to be a resource to support folks who are in this journey, and that's what this show is about. So we unpack things like we're unpacking today often. So if you are new to the show, be sure to subscribe. Blaine, let's get into the episode. Maybe just kind of take us on a history tour of our early days of, do you even remember what was some of the first paid ads that we ever ran?
Well, I mean, the most basic form was promoting a Facebook post. Was just, trying to get more views, trying to get more clicks.
A boosted post.
There you go, boosted post. And that is just, I want to call it, it's like hope marketing. It's like you really don't know how to measure the results of it. You're stabbing in the dark, and that's what we did for many years. And the problem is, if you don't know what you're doing, there is no way to measure the effectiveness of that, and you won't have the confidence to push forward. I would say cold marketing has taken a lot of confidence. I mean, you've got to have some, if you're extremely risk adverse, you're gonna be on the fence on this for a while because it really takes diving in.
Well, and that's why I'm looking forward to this episode, because what we're going to share is basically kind of, we're going to run through like a little checklist of kind of some of the stuff that we feel like we've been able to kind of check off that has enabled us to get amazing returns on advertising today, and that we would encourage you to, until you kind of go through this checklist and you've got pretty much everything checked off, I would refrain from heading down this path.
Yeah, I will say right off the bat, like, we do not manage our cold ads or advertising campaigns ourselves. I mean, that we tried to dabble in that for a while. It is such a deep, deep world. I would never recommend someone getting into it themselves and trying to run and manage their own ad campaigns using complex tools like Facebook Business Manager and Google's Manager.
Well, let's just share a little bit of what it looks like today. I mean, I mentioned that we're getting hundreds of new customers a week, and that's on a consistent basis. This isn't like during a certain season when we're doing a major promotion or anything like that. That's consistently every week coming through the door. People placing orders for the first time. And we've had to experiment a lot to make that happen. But one of the biggest keys is getting the right people in place. So we've got someone in-house, started with an agency, which was good for us to kind of get some expertise in place, but we didn't have to hire, look at making that jump to a full-time person on the team. We were able to graduate to it from working with an agency, getting some traction.
Well, actually, it first started in-house with Chad, who was handling all digital marketing for us. He was also handling ads, and that was mainly A lot of it was retargeting. So warm traffic ads, that was a great place to start. We'll probably get into that here.
Yep.
But then when we got aggressive about, okay, we're going to go out and try to put our business in front of people that have never heard of us and convert them into a buyer. It's quite a challenge. But working with the agency and then bringing someone full-time in-house is where we are today. Yeah. And that is their sole focus every day out, every week.
Well, and the coolest part is that we're talking about these type of results to get hundreds of new customers a week. I mean, we're talking about, a significant budget that's going out the door every single week as well, to get in front of customers. But the coolest part, I think, that we feel from our perspective is the confidence that we have in the return on that investment. I mean, what's the ad budget at this point? It's it's not six figures, but it's getting there per month.
60,000-80,000 per month is what we're spending, and it's working.
So we're spending that with confidence. So that's where going through this checklist, we're going to just basically help. The goal is to get you to a place that when you start advertising, you're advertising with confidence too, because if we didn't have the confidence that was going to return on the back end and that was going to be profitable, there's no way you could ever write that check to Facebook and Google, and would be irresponsible to do so. Yeah.
I will say, I want to hit on this because this was part of our limiting belief when we thought about cold ads, is just looking at advertising as another overhead that, if you look at your business model and if you're looking at it and saying, okay, here's my profit end of the year currently, and then if I added, let's say $50,000 for this year's advertising budget, the mistake is just economically looking at your current economic model and taking that $50,000 off the bottom line as an overhead.
Yeah. So like if I'm profiting 100,000 this year, and then you're like, there's no way I'm going to spend next year $50,000 on ads to experiment. Well, that only leaves me 50,000 left over. But you got to remember, this is one of the only overheads that has such an immediate short-term ROI factor to it, where it adds something to the top line.
The fact of the matter is, you can be doing really bad, and ads will create more revenue, and that will have an effect on your profit.
I remember when we were doing an exercise to really decide to go all in to cold acquisition marketing with paid advertising. You produced and worked with our CFO to produce a spreadsheet that basically showed that if we didn't spend the significant budget that we were talking about this year, we'd actually have less profit left over, because it enabled us to scale some of our overheads further by growing faster.
Yes, it's amazing. It's a magical overhead that you need to look at very strategically when you're running your economic models, because that's exactly what happened. It became evident to us that our total profit at the end of the year would be less if we didn't significantly spend on advertising.
You can absolutely blow up your business with paid advertising. Yeah. There's venture-backed companies in the grocery delivery world who are doing this all the time. We see examples to it, and they don't have, a lot of times they have capital behind them that allows them to do it faster. But outside of that, it's really just a knowledge thing of all the components you got to get right to make sure you get the ROI on the spend. So let's use that as a transition, Blaine, into this checklist that we're going to walk everyone through to kind of help you evaluate your situation, whether or not you're in a position, or how far are you from being in a position to be able to start.
These are the things that if someone came to you or I and they said, am I ready for cold ads? We would kind of go down this checklist and say, well, let's ask these questions. Can you answer yes or no to most of these?
Yep. So, all right, kick it off.
Yeah, well, the first one is your on-site optimizations and your experience. Okay, when you're spending dollars to create to send traffic to your website, you really want to give your website a quite a bit of scrutiny. Is this website clear, and does it have the potential to convert a buyer? So, I mean, most of our cold traffic, I think, from Facebook goes to a dedicated sales page. It's not our home page. It's not just the product page. It's a dedicated sales page where we've tailored that page to just present the best experience based on the ads that we created. This lands them on a consecutive, from the ad to the click. Here's, we make recommendations on that sales page. Here's our top 3 most popular bundles. The guarantee is front and center. So there's just a lot of thought that goes into that sales page where people are landing.
So a simple analogy you can think about this is, obviously, if you're, going to a farmer's market, you're taking time, costs to go there. You're paying some fees to be there. And if you show up and put zero effort into that farmer's market booth, you've got no signage, and it just, either it's your neighbor who's doing way better than you from an advertising standpoint, they're going to get more eyeballs, and it's going to be more likely that they'll hold some people's attention as you're walking walking by. So this is no different. Think about your website in the same way. The attention span of a new visitor, especially somebody who's clicking from an ad, they're a little bit more skeptic. So when they land on your website, they weren't searching for you on Google or anything like that. They just thought the ad looked interesting, so they click. They're going to have even shorter attention span. So you need to make sure that you're capturing that attention as quickly as possible, and that you're communicating in a concise way and very clearly. And we could go on and on about this.
So just as a practical example, you can go to Seven Sons /start, sevensons.net /start, and that will take you to basically our cold ad sales page. You can't click to this page anywhere on our website. You only get to this page through these cold ads. And this page is built, designed, and optimized around cold traffic.
There's lots of specific things we could break down about this page and concepts that we're using. But I think the one thing I'd encourage you to do is if you go to the page, just scroll through it and look through how few of words are used to communicate clearly to our customers. I think that's a very common thing that a lot of times we end up making a mistake of, is trying to go too deep too early with new visitors and telling your story, what you have to sell, the mission behind what you do in regenerative agriculture. And it's great to communicate all that stuff, but we do that later on in the customer journey a lot of times, and we keep things a lot more concise up front.
Yeah. So, I mean, the sales page is the main thing, like getting that website very compelling, concise, for someone to be able to make a quick, easy decision. And we also make sure we incorporate things like lead capture. So what if, customers are, but cold traffic is not going to just sit there and buy immediately. They're going to need some nurturing. So way to capture an email address, compelling way to get an email address when they're not ready for the sale. Having a tripwire offer in place. So you're basically those bundles that we have on that start page. Those are our best bundles. We call them tripwire offers.
Making some suggestions to customers, not just thrown to a store with 300 products to select from where you can end up with decision fatigue. Again, these are people who've done less research, right? So, just like somebody who comes up to your farmer's market booth for the first time or your farm store, a lot of times those new customers will ask you, what do you recommend to start with? It's the same thing online. So that's what we're doing there. So that's the first kind of question that we're going to ask back to you. Well, how much time have you spent on optimizing your website for a brand new customer? And number two is going to be the offsite follow-up. So you're talking about the lead capture, talking a little bit more about this and why that's so important, that if you're going to get the lead, you've got to make sure, what are we communicating with them?
Yeah. So the goal is, of course, your sales page that we were talking about earlier, your goal is to capture a sale. The reality is the far majority of visitors will not buy the first time they visit your page. So your second goal is, let's at least try to get their email address, capture that email address. But it's not just enough to capture their email address and then just put it on your regular newsletter. You need to have a thought out flow for the next 30 days. What is the most intentional, best content, most compelling journey and message, email journey that you can put that customer on for the next 30 days to really try to get that conversion via email?
Yeah, and we're just talking about how you can go too deep too early sometimes with the website. Sometimes this is some of that content that maybe you're removing, you feel like you're getting rid of, and it's hard to let go of it. But no, you can still tell and go deeper with a customer later on. And this is here where you're going to do that. And especially if you've been running a newsletter for a long time, you probably have newsletters that people resonate with a little bit more. It would be more appropriate to share with somebody when they're just learning about you. And sometimes it's just easy to think about, what's my pitch that I walk through with a customer when they come to my farm store or the farmer's market booth for the first time, and I share more about what I do. This email follow-up campaign should be doing the same thing. Just speaking to the rationale of who you are, why you do what you do, what makes you different, and why it matters to the customer.
Yeah, so just getting really practical about this, Brooks, the number one follow-up campaign needs to be a abandoned cart follow-up, because you will get a lot of visitors that may add some things to their cart. So one of the biggest wins is make sure there's an abandoned cart.
This is very basic. Easy. This is more transactional. That's people who maybe spent a little bit more time. They went through the journey a little bit deeper, spent more time on the website, started loading things in their cart for whatever reason. A lot of times, these are two-person decisions. Somebody starts out, they saw the ad on the website, they're loading things up with your 8th beef bundle or whatever. It's a bigger purchase, right? So they need to consult with the other side of the family to make sure they get buy-in on that. And people are busy. Sometimes you can just forget. So staying on top of their mind when someone got that close is a no-brainer. And the conversion rate on these campaigns are never zero. You're always going to get new revenue once you implement them.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about Grace Cart is that's one of the first things that potential customers ask for is their zip code and their email address, so that you can tailor that experience for them. So we are very effective using Gray's Cart to get a lot of leads through the door. So the first thing we deliver is that abandoned cart campaign. We have a nice little coupon offer that follows up with a new email lead, and then we'll go straight into just some of the best content that we've sent out in our newsletters over the years. Most compelling content, we'll start dripping that out to customers over those first, at least for the first 30 days. Our nurture campaign goes, beyond 90 days. But it's because we have a lot of content we've developed over the years that we can do that with.
So this is really important, and I don't want to undermine it, but we've got 6 questions that we will walk through. So keep going to number 3 that you would kind of move to. If we check the first 2, what's next?
I would say just having some tracking and benchmarking in place so that you can make a confident decision about how much you can spend on a customer. So just a couple benchmarks that we've been watching for years. And if you're thinking about cold advertising, I would say, well, start tracking these now. And one would be, how much value do you typically get from a customer in their first 90 days? And then look at how much value do you get from a customer within their first 12 months. Knowing those numbers will give you a lot of confidence to know how much you can actually spend on a new customer. Because if you don't have it set in your mind how much you can spend to get a new customer, you will never have the confidence to start scaling your ad budget and get into this. So I think it's just good to start, because if you decide today, I'm ready for cold advertising, then your next question is, well, I wonder how much I can spend. Well, there's where for the last 90 days or so, if you've been tracking at least some of this data to give you some confidence. Now, again, to get a year's worth of data behind how much customer spends with you, Brooks, is there an easy way? Do you want to talk about to try to figure that out if you haven't been tracking it?
To know how much a customer spends in a year?
Yeah.
Just look at your annual revenue that you got, and then just divide that by the number of customers who placed an order in the last 12-month period. And that's going to tell you, on average, how
much a customer is worth.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. So they can start base some decisions.
Yeah, and this is where so that's an easy way to do it. But also it's like, okay, now you got to back out of that number though, right? That gives you revenue per customer. Now you need to figure out, well, how much do I keep on that?
Yeah.
So this is where we can't undermine the value of having the right financial mind on your team, whether that's fractional or directly on the team. So we don't talk about team building and hiring on this checklist, but that is kind of a given when we talk about once you go to do these certain things, you see that you've got to have the right people on board and in your corner.
The first thing that someone who's managing your ads will ask you is, well, they will want a budget of how much can I spend to get you a new customer. And so you need to be ready with that data to say confidently, you can spend up to this point and we're good. Anything above that, we need to re-strategize. So
I'm cheating, looking off your cheat sheet here. Number 4 is find the right partner. Talk about that.
Yeah, once you get those off-site and on-site things taken care of, you're doing some benchmarking, then it's time to go find the right partner to work with. So we already talked about what we did. We started with somebody in-house on our team that really had a knack for this, Chad Grau, our digital marketing guy.
This is the right partner to manage your ad spend. Where, what platform are you going to use? Facebook, Google? Are you going to put it all in one place? You're going to spread it out. And then inside of each one of those platforms, there's, endless amount of, tools and strategy that goes into, displaying this ad to, finding the right type of person who's going to resonate with. So this is in art and a science. There's people who you spend a career focusing on this, and that's who you want.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think just one of the easiest places to get started would be looking for an agency to manage this for you, because they're not. You don't have to go out and hire a full-time person. We weren't there when we got started, and here's a warning. Almost every advertising agency out there says that they specialize in digital advertising or paid digital ads. And the reality is, in our experiences, not very many actually are good at it and specialize in it. So when we set out, Brooks, to find a partner, we wanted somebody that was an agency and that digital cold advertising was their main thing.
Yeah, because a lot of times in the agency world, it can be hard to turn away business, and they obviously probably know. Any agency probably knows. Most every agency probably knows more than we do about clicking what buttons to put an ad in place. So they feel like they can't take on that business. But, you're always going to get more return with somebody who focuses specifically on this. It's just like a vertically integrated farm, it's really hard to have someone on your team and even for you to be great at the production side, growing an animal, doing your own processing. Obviously there's overheads that you can get into that, but to be good at it, be good at all the fulfillment, the logistics, and then the marketing, the customer service. There's just a lot there. Same thing's true in the marketing world. There's people who are experts in SEO, email marketing, retention, Facebook, Google, paid ads, organic content marketing. It's really hard to find somebody who's great at all that stuff.
Yeah. This is Dan Sullivan has the book, Ask Who, Not How. So you need to find the right person to do this. The things that I looked at, Brooks, when we were hiring our ad agency for the first time was, do they do both Facebook and Google? Because a lot of ad agencies will specialize, not a lot, but some will specialize in just one or the other. I think getting started when you're small, you want to have a presence on both platforms. So finding someone, an ad agency that will specialize in both. One of the first things I always ask for from an agency is show me some case studies. Show me what you've done with maybe similar sized businesses or maybe even similar brands as mine. I always, this is easier with a small agency, but I always wanted to be able to talk to the actual ad strategist behind the scenes. Cause a lot of agencies are structured for you to only interact with, what do you call it? Just like a project manager. Yeah. And in some cases that's okay. They can be very, very helpful. But for us, we wanted to be at least to be able to have direct access with the ad strategist, the person behind the scenes that's building the ads and tracking and measuring them. So.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It doesn't always happen, but obviously you're going to be able to get better answers to your more granular questions that you may have. So some of this comes down to too, how well do you understand? What you're getting into and can offer insights into optimizing.
We felt like we understood it well enough that we wanted to work directly with an ad strategist.
So moving on, number 5.
Yep. Number 5 is just ask yourself before you go down this path, do I have the resources that I'm willing to put aside and invest in this opportunity? One of the resources that the first thing you're going to be asked for from an agency or someone working with you for ads, they're going to say, okay, what kind of creative assets do you have that we can use for these ads? So what kind of pictures, what kind of videos do you have that I can hit the ground running with? And so if you don't have a whole lot of digital assets, branding assets, I would say, go out and collect some of those. So for us, it was easy getting started because for years we had been producing a lot of content and there was a lot that ad strategists could literally comb through. I mean, we sent gigabytes of files to the ad strategists, really kind of overwhelmed them. But they were able to go through it and they're like, okay, we'll pick some of these ad assets.
Yeah, and you got to be careful too, because if you try heading down this path a little bit too early, you don't have these assets in place. A lot of times, then once you're talking to the agency, especially if you're talking about an all in-house shop. They're going to, pitch you on, yes, we can manage your ads, but also we need to create all this creative and background work. And then, you can get upside down on a budget pretty quickly when, you can probably come up with, it's not, this is the easier part. You can tell your story well. If you have an iPhone, you've got the equipment that you need to be able to capture the assets that you need to put behind the ads. So, it is a critical piece that often is forgotten. You need your budget, you need your expert, but you also then need what are they going to put in front of the customer? You need those assets to help tell your story through the ads.
The more of that, the better before you get started. And true, I would say that you need to be prepared with a budget for them to work with. There's kind of a little bit of there's a minimum entry that you need to, or a minimum budget you need to have for Facebook and Google to actually
the algorithm needs trained.
Yeah, it needs trained. The algorithm needs trained, and it needs a little bit of volume throughput in order to actually get the feedback. Get the feedback and that AI algorithm working for you. So I would say if you're looking at cold ads on the low end, target $5,000 per month. Anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 per month. I've seen farms get started for less. We did get started for less, but it was a little bit of a grind.
And then on top of the budget, there's kind of a, we call it like a hold your breath time period too, right? When you start to deploy the funds and to get these campaigns going, yes, you need a budget to get the feedback for the algorithms, but they need time to work as well. So, the first few months, you're probably not going to have a lot of traction. So once you go down this path, you definitely have to carve out and get agreement with yourself, the agency, and as a team, well, how long are we going to put this budget towards this to see the results that we want? So of course you got to know what results you want, but then you also got to give it some time to get there.
Yeah. So that leads me to number 6, and that's just and I hinted at this earlier. When you're ready to hire a partner, you need to be clear with them what your goals are for what we call CAC, your cost of acquisition. So how much does every new customer end up costing you in ad spend? So being clear in that. So I think it's important to give some thresholds and some forgiveness because your first 3 months of ad spend are guaranteed to be a lot more than the next 3 months, just because, again, that you're working with an agency, they're getting familiar with you, they're getting the algorithms going and working for you. So I would say, have have a goal for the first 3 months of willing to spend up to this number to let you guys go through this learning process. So here's my budget, and I'm willing to spend this much per customer on those first 3 months, and then go ahead and get more aggressive by tell your ad agency by 6 months though. We need to start getting it down to here. And by month 12, that's kind of your end goal is like, okay, for us, by month 12, for us to consider this a viable model, I need to be down to, this CAC goal. And so I think it's important to have those goals and those thresholds divided out, at least into maybe 3 to 6 to 12 month milestones.
Okay, I might have missed it. I have to admit, I've heard the content before, so my brain went somewhere else. Did you give an example of the CAC, how we track that, or how we calculate, what that number looks like?
Okay.
Because you don't have to overcomplicate it. There's definitely, you can get, we're even still on this journey to get really precise with it, especially looking at, what's the cost to acquire for Facebook versus Google. That all gets very, very complicated quickly, and you need sophisticated tools.
The CAC calculation very simply is the total amount of ad spend that I'm spending, divide that by the number of customers that came in. So for example, if we're spending $5,000 a month on ads, and say we got 100 new customers, obviously it's 5,000 divided by 100, so you got that's $50 per. Now that's a good CAC number. Don't expect that for your first 3 months, but you can get there. You can get there. So that's how we figure CAC. It's just the cost of spending divided by the new customers that come in that given time period. So
cool. Well, that's the 6 questions that we're going to walk through. If you're asking us if it's time to start advertising, go through that list, re-listen to the episode, make sure and just start tackling these things off first before you start putting together a budget, because again, it is money out the door if you can't keep and get the ROI from it. So any other important considerations that anyone should think about that wasn't on that list?
I would say, there's a couple things. I mean, if you're at the point with your business where you feel like, we're primed for a lot of growth. We have some of the, for us, Brooks, before we got into cold ads heavily, we had built a building here on the farm that could pump out a lot more orders than what we were. So we made that investment than what we were. So that means that any growth that came very profitably. So if you're at the point where it's like, oh man, if I grow anymore, I'm gonna have to make some substantial investments. Then that's just gonna be a harder uphill climb for you. But if you're at the point where you feel like I've made the investments, I'm ready to grow, then I would say that's another checkbox that are you primed for growth without having to invest a lot in additional new overheads, because obviously the advertising is a whole new overhead for you.
Yep. So there might be people listening to this, Blaine, who went through the 6 questions and were thinking, oh boy, I don't have half of those checked off.
Yeah.
If I'm in that position, what do I do first? What would you say to that question?
And this is a question we would ask anyone who says I'm thinking about cold ads. First, we would probably ask, how well are you doing at retaining customers? So if you feel like, hey, I'm not there on these yet, I would say go look at your ability to get value out of a customer in their first 12 months or 24 months. What is that number? And I would say 9 times out of 10, there's work you can do there to grow your business, just simply by focusing on loyalty and lifetime value for customers.
This is focusing on your email marketing, making sure that you've got a strong foundation there. So much potential that's left untapped on email marketing, but then also your subscription program. We've got podcast episodes. If you go to the website, foodchainwars.com, where we talk about email a lot on the show. We talk about retention a lot on the show. Type in those keywords or subscriptions. I know we've done a couple episodes on that. But if you get, we have a mentor that we follow, Alex Ramosi, who says, if you get rock solid on the back end, meaning retention, you can get silly on the front end, meaning that you can spend more to justify acquiring a customer. And that allows you to get more creative and allows you to spend more time experimenting in different ways to see, okay, well, you have to experiment sometimes. And how, sacrifice a poor CAC number in order to find, okay, how can we really reduce this and get it down? So that's the episode. Hopefully you found some insights in listening to what we had to share. If you've ever been curious about advertising, again, the next time that you see that competitor ad, know that maybe they haven't gone through this whole checklist and this might only be a matter of time before they have to cut this, or maybe they have figured it out. That should just be more motivation to you, because now you've got a map to kind of go through and start taking action on. If you joined the show, go to foodchainwars.com. Be sure to subscribe because we release more content like this. And the best way to support just us taking the time to sit down and share is to go over and leave a review. So you can do that on the website as well or on your favorite platform, Apple or Spotify. Leave us a review. That'd make our day. But we appreciate your time. We'll see you next time.